Hi, Achim Schlössl, Innerspace Explorers. As I was asked repetitively, especially by my patrons, to come up with a video about the KISS and ISE and rebreathers in general, here we are. Before I go to the details of the KISS and why I dive the KISS the way I do it, I would like to cover the question on ISE and rebreathers, because there's a bit of history. And I mean, everybody knowing my background, I've been crucified, burned, and slaughtered for diving rebreathers at all. And I'm diving rebreathers basically for more than 30 years. But in my DIR background, that was always a no-go, because rebreathers are lethal and they kill you, and it's not DIR, and it's blah, 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 blah. I nevertheless did it. It's an individual decision. I'm still my own master, so I never let anybody else tell me what to do or what not to do. And so you can see this development when rebreathers are a no-go. Suddenly, well, maybe a PCR can be used, and that's how it all started. And then when you look at the PCR in the old days, then you clearly realize that the PCR was not used as a rebreather. It was used as a gas extension tool, and obviously it has a lot less capabilities than a real CCR has, and it was used in mixed teams. So the way it was used back then made a lot of sense. So basically you took a set of doubles, separated the tanks, put the PCR in the middle, and you basically still used the configuration that you used before in your set of doubles. So you still had your long hose, you still had your necklace. So it was basically the same thing. You just had an additional isolation valve, and you had the two chicken valves on the switch block and all of this, but generally it was still the same concept. On the other hand, the PCR just extends the usability of the gas that you have in your tanks by a certain ratio, 1:8, 1:10, whatever set of counterlungs you use or bellows you use. So then came, and there's still, rebreathers were still not good. And then when I started Innerspace Explorers and I started with rebreathers in the organization, we were obviously playing around, because I always wanted to stay open-minded, see what is there, what is good, what is not good, and you can only figure that out if you test and you play around. And so my origin, so to speak, moved in a different direction, and suddenly from rebreathers are not good, satanic stuff, suddenly switched to ECCR in a kind of PCR configuration, which I never figured out and which should not be the topic of this video, because for me it simply doesn't make any sense, but that might be me. That's probably a good video for all the haters. Anyway, so when you look at a CCR like the KISS here, and you probably also noticed that we played around with eCCR, so we played with the Prism for a while, and dropped it, because we just figured for the philosophy, the DIR philosophy, for what ISE stands for, it has to be a manual CCR. And the reason, and I just quickly want to cover that, I think there's another video on the channel where I'm actually talking about this. The reason for that is that the eCCR basically takes information, makes a decision based on that information, and then acts. And so first of all, you as a diver have to monitor what the unit's doing. You have to realize if it makes a mistake, and if it makes something that's not good, it forces you to react at that moment. So just to give an example, solenoid failure. I mean, if you have a stuck solenoid at depth, you have to act right now. And usually, remember Murphy, it's the moment where this is not good. On an MCCR, the information is also provided, but it's provided to you. So you read, okay, that's my status of my gear, and then you make a decision. And if something goes wrong, you normally have time to react. So there is no solenoid that can get stuck. So, but if I realize my PO2 is dropping, I need to press the button. But if I'm engaged in whatever problem with my partner, it doesn't matter what it is. I know that I still have a certain amount of minutes where my PO2 doesn't drop into a critical into a critical status. So I have time, which in my opinion is a huge benefit and adds a lot of safety. And it forces me to think about what I'm doing. It forces me to think about my dive, to plan my dive, and to be aware and alert all the time, which on an eCCR, people are lazy. It works the first dive, the first 10 dives, the first 100 dives, and at some point you rely on it, and that's usually when the trouble starts. Because your awareness is just dropping, because it's a cool machine, it's doing everything by itself, so yeah, let it go. And yeah, so that's the reason why we went to the MCCR. So normally when people see me diving the KISS, the first question I always receive is, are you a DIR guy? Why do you not dive it with two diluent bottles connected on the back, like the classical PSDR configuration? So for those of you who are not really into this, when you look at the KISS here, I have my diluent, I have my oxygen, and the configuration I'm talking about would be two tanks here that are connected by a manifold. They would both contain diluent, and then there would be a separate oxygen bottle somewhere. So and the question is always, why are you not doing this? That's DIR. Well, first of all, when do I dive a rebreather? I dive a rebreather when I need it. I mean, forget about training dives and stuff like that, but we talk real dives. I use a rebreather on a dive that I cannot do open circuit, or that would not make any sense doing it open circuit. Therefore, I'm obviously not diving rebreather in a mixed team. I mean, people are doing that. But looking at the rebreather as a concept, why would I dive a rebreather on a dive with a guy open circuit? First of all, it would limit my time, because he would be limited. He would limit myself by his limited source of gas. He would suffer from a couple of other topics like cold gas, dry gas, and so on. I mean, all the classical stuff I don't want to cover now when we talk about rebreathers versus open circuit. But if I need the rebreather on that dive, obviously the other guy would need it as well. So we're not talking mixed teams. So being in a rebreather team, the classical out of gas scenario usually is not going to happen. I mean, how should a rebreather diver go out of gas? It's a little bit like the side mount diver with two independent cylinders. I mean, how do you want to get out of gas? You lost one tank and then you continued on the single tank? It's stupid. Same thing here. I mean, even if one of those small bottles is running out of gas for whatever reason, this O-ring bursting, whatever nonsense thing, fine, it's gone, but I still carry bailout. I have to carry bailout for myself in case I have an issue with my rebreather. So what we teach, the significant thing is being out of rebreather, not being out of gas. So being out of rebreather is also like I'm losing the gas that's connected to my rebreather. I mean, it's a very small amount anyway. So, but loss of rebreather would be a CO2 breakthrough, a flooding of the rebreather, ruptured hose in the flooding because of this, something like that. So obviously the CCR gives me tons of opportunities. I can grab a mouthful of gas, so to speak, from another diver, from a tank of another diver, but in the first place I can take it from myself. I have the opportunity to plug in different gas sources through this hose which goes on the diluent side, and as I have to carry bailout for myself in case something happens with the rebreather, so I can make it from the deepest point of my dive up to the first decompression stop and then do my decompression open circuit, I'm carrying all kind of gases anyway, which I can plug into my rebreather in case I just lost one of those gases or both of those gases, but the rebreather is still working. So I definitely don't need another diver coming and giving me his long hose, gas source, whatever. If I have a rebreather issue, so the rebreather is flooded, I still don't need the other diver because I'm carrying my bailout. So instead of I'm out of gas or whatever, first of all, I have the BUV, so I flip this. I can go to my diluent on the back, or if I'm plugged in here, I go to the tank that's plugged in directly. And then I can switch to that tank, and there's a regulator, and I'm just breathing it, and I'm calling the dive, and I'm going up because that's what I'm carrying my bailout for. So all this scenario that calls for a long hose and a necklace and this lots of diluent gas on my back is just not there anymore. So that makes the configuration obsolete, and that's the reason why we dive the KISS in its original setup. I have these two 2-liter tanks, so 2 times 2 liter tanks to make this more clear. And so my oxygen side, the gas comes up in these yellow hoses. The yellow doesn't have to do anything with like marking or so. I just for myself have my oxygen tanks in this bright yellow because they were laying around. There's no gas marking with colors or something like that. Don't jump on that. So that's my manual oxygen injection. At the same time, there's a constant flow of 0.7 liters that's going through here, and if I press that, I like override that and push oxygen in manually. I have my SPG for that right tank, and so the gas goes then back in here and goes back here in the head. It's not the point. So on the second side, I have my diluent coming up here, and that goes into this block here, and there it distributes. So one goes in the rebreather, one goes to my BUV, one goes to my inflator. There's also an SPG again, and then I have this hose where I can feed in other gas to this block. So for example, let's say I'm at 21 meters and I want to raise my PO2 for decompression, and I have, let's say, a 1080 in the back. So obviously I theoretically can raise my PO2 to 1.5, whatever, 1.4, whatever plan you're following. But that's kind of uncomfortable having a diluent with 1080. So if I, for example, plug in a 2135 or plug in a 50, so more oxygen-rich gas, it's much easier to maintain that. And obviously, if I close my diluent and I plug in the gas here, I also have it on my BUV. So if I have an issue and I flip it, I'm not on a 2-liter tank, I'm on 80 cubic feet or whatever I use, that's hanging on my side. So that's the inlet for that. Yeah, what else? As you can see, the configuration itself looks pretty much like a set of doubles. It's a backplate and a wing. I mean, everything's there like you're used to. So also the question people are asking, you can see this butt plate here that you know from side mount diving. And a lot of people ask me, what's this about? So a lot of KISS divers actually use a long back plate because the unit is relatively short. So if you're a bit taller, it actually can create a bit of back pain. I never liked the long back plate, so I use this butt plate, which helps me actually to distribute it a little bit better on my back. And at the same time, I sometimes side mount my my bailout tanks. And actually, I'm pretty sure I did a video on that, because, for example, in training dives, where there's open circuit people in the water and I want to be able to donate gas, I have a bailout on my left side, which is a 40 cubic feet, with a necklace, so I have a bailout for myself, so it's no DQ gases involved. We talk training dives, 6 meters of water, 10 meters of water, something like that. And I have a second 40 cubic feet side mounted on my right side with a 1 meter hose. So in case this open circuit diver swims by and I'm out of gas, I can just pull that regulator, give it to him, and then I can unclip that tank and give it to him in case he's able to handle that. Otherwise he can stay with me and we can do our 5 meter ascent or whatever. But that's just in a very, very special scenario, and that's one of the reasons why I carry this butt plate, because it makes it easy for me to side mount these tanks. Obviously I can also just use 2 stages. But that's the way I'm doing it. Yeah, otherwise, it's not that much to say. The question basically was, why do you dive the rebreather in this configuration? I hope I answered that question. If you have any questions, comments, whatever, please comment in the comment section of this video, and I'll try to cover it in basic words. If you want to go more into detail, check out our Patreon page, because that's where we have the real discussions going on in depth and detail. And yeah, thank you for watching. If you've not subscribed yet, please do so. Also check out our Facebook site, and I'll see you next Friday. Thank you.